limitations of the human spirit? Or just how far can the human free will be pressured before it breaks? This is a topic that has been covered by many stories such as George Orwell's 1984 to the more recent Todd Phillips' Joker movie. And like all of these stories, this becomes a conflict between the character's free will and the desire to be free versus the pressures that are brought down by the various adversaries and society in general. And since each of us values our free will and right to choose very much, it becomes something that is very sensitive to us when we experience it in these sorts of stories. And since Battle Angel Alita is a very dark story that talks about the conflict between individual characters and society, there are many instances where such topics appear, such as through the characters of Carol or Kana or Hugo or even Dr. Ito. And each one of these characters are taken to a very stressful point where they themselves start acting against their free will, or in the case of Carol or Dr. Ito, they finally break to the point that they commit suicide or voluntarily lose their memory. And it is this measure that we are fascinated by, to witness just how far the human will can endure before finally breaking in. And although we do witness many such examples in the story of Battle Angel Alita, one of the most prominent that we experience is that of Erica Wald. So what's up, people, and welcome back to another Battle Angel Alita discussion. And this time it's about Mars Chronicle, mostly about Mars Chronicle, although we will get into some parts of Last Order. And of course the topic, as you can imagine, is about Erica Wald. And this is a very unique character because not only is she a very prominent character in the latter parts of the story, especially in Mars Chronicle, where you could arguably say that she is possibly even more prominent than the main character of Alita, at least at the moment. But she also has a very unique personality that somewhat kind of sticks with you, in your memory. And not always in a good way, I would say. On the one hand, since she is one of the few close people who cares about Alita or the young Yoko, and the amount of effort she does to protect her and take care of her makes you want to respect her in many ways. She has a very good heart and a very good soul. And yet on the other side is, of course, the terror that she is. She is seriously twisted. And that side frightens you significantly because of the fact that she not only is brutal, but she is connivingly brutal. And because of that, you're not exactly sure how to treat this character. Do you want to cheer her on? Do you want to shy away from her? Do you feel comfortable and energetic wanting to see her go through the story, or do you feel disturbed and upset over the things that she does? And the answer that I come up with, at least for myself, is yes, in both cases. And so this becomes a very curious dilemma in that you wonder why this character ended up being so polar opposite sometimes in her personality, and just how can somebody who was, or who seems to be very good in a foundation sort of way, do some of the most disturbing acts that you see in the series of Mars Chronicle. Now, at this point, I think I will give my standard spoiler alert. So we will be covering quite a bit of Erika's story, and since the majority of Erika's story comes out in Mars Chronicle, if you haven't read to even the most recent chapters of Mars Chronicle where Erika's story is ongoing, then there may be a chance you may want to turn off this video. Now, people who have been listening to my videos in the past, for those of you who know, you probably already know whether you want to turn this video off or not. And if you are okay with being spoiled, or if you have been staying up with the Battle Angel Alita series, then yeah, please join us. But if you are worried that you will get spoiled, and if you decide that you will be reading the comic in the near future, then I would suggest that you turn it off. And anyway, that is my spoiler alert, and as always, please watch at your discretion. Okay, so, when you start reading Battle Angel Alita, the very original series, one of the big intrigues that comes up is her past. Since she has no memory of her past, one of the questions that the readers come up with and the curiosity that the readers have is, I wonder what Alita's past was like. And considering the fact that she does have this outgoing personality, especially in the beginning, almost a warm personality, you start wondering if that was the same sort of persona she had in the past. And yet then there is this conflict between that warm personality and the killer instinct martial art that she has in her Panzerkunst. How can a person who has that warm a personality just go tripping out and destroying other characters so easily? And of course that raises everybody's curiosity even more with regards to what her past is. And of course in the original story, we don't get to see too much of her past until we get to the retconned ending, which got retconned, so I'm not exactly sure how much of that past is relevant anymore in the comic. But even if it is relevant, it is in the latter parts of her adulthood prior to being woken up in the junkyard. And so what happened earlier in her life that made her who she is not really delved upon in the original series, and you really don't get any indication of what she was like as a child until Last Order, where you start getting some clues and visions of what her life was like, and none of it is particularly great, right? But what was curious is when you start Last Order, the very first chapters are not about the continuation of Alita from the original series, right? But it actually starts right from the beginning with Alita's childhood, a scene from Alita's childhood. And once again, it's a very disturbing scene that has her crawling around in a minefield, risking her life, due to some of the mercenary soldiers who, I guess, captured her and is using her as, testing to see if she will trip a mine and blow herself up, right? And during that time, we are introduced to a completely new character, and that character is Erika Wald. And what's interesting is during that time, you initially find two things about Erika. One is that you're shocked by the appearance when she comes out. She's missing a hand, and she doesn't have an eye. And she's bandaged up so much that it looks like she's, still bleeding from those wounds. And you start wondering, what the heck did these mercenaries do to that poor child? The other one is, despite the fact that she has all these wounds, she goes out of the way and risks her life to help Alita, or Yoko at that time. And she actually will be willing to walk that minefield with Alita, to help her out. Now, it might be somewhat heroic, it might be not heroic because of the fact that all of the children were gathered to eventually walk the minefield. Anyway, it might have been, even to Erica, a little bit more comforting if she had somebody to walk with, so maybe that's why she did it. I don't know. But considering the fact that she jumped between the mercenary soldiers who were about to kill Alita to, protect Alita, and offered to walk the minefield with her, that she was taking a little bit of a risk, and that made you wonder what sort of character she was. And of course, throughout that entire scene where she's moving forward and supporting Alita and trying to become an emotional shield to her, you start feeling like, wow, this is a very interesting child. And you kind of admire her for, first, her strength, in that despite all the wounds that she has, and they're brutally vicious wounds, she's willing to come out to help Alita. And the other is the kindness that she shows to Alita during that entire event. And builds up this character that you feel is a very, very good character. There were many, many children grouped together in that particular instance, and the only one who came out to help Alita when her life was at risk was Erica. So there is something very special about Erica. And yet the next time we see Erica is when she is an adult in the current era. And she comes out as Frau X. And although she is a mystery woman in Last Order, it's more than obvious who she is. And unlike the Erica of the child, who was a very caring and brave individual, Frau X is a vicious assassin. Not only was she able to take out Ziz's special forces with ease in very little time, but the way she took them out individually in brutal methods made you seriously wonder if this was the same person that you saw as a child. I mean, this person not only killed efficiently, but she seemed to enjoy each individual killing. And this is very different from the characteristic of somebody you see like Gelda, right? So far, from what we know of Gelda, anyway, the little bit that we know of Gelda, Gelda is an extremely efficient and strong killing machine. But the reason why I call Erica vicious, which I never said to Gelda, is because of the fact that Gelda understands that it's an order, understands it's a job, and she efficiently does the killing and then feels no enjoyment out of it, at least from what we understand. In the case of Erica, although, again, this is an order and this is a mission, you can feel like Erica is really enjoying each one of these, almost like a hunter, going after the prey, or a serial killer coming out in these slasher movies. If there's any one character that Erica reminded me of during that scene, it was basically the Predator. And if you remember how vicious the Predator was and how he enjoyed that specific hunt to kill those individuals at the very brink of their fear, then that is the feeling that I got from Erica. And considering that Zizi is an extremely hardcore soldier who's been so battle-hardened that nothing really phases her, even she felt a little bit uneasy, going up against somebody like Erica. So, or Frau X, I should say. So Frau X was a very darker individual than the character that you saw as Erica as a child. And of course, then that raises a separate question from what was Alita's childhood like, which is, what the heck happened to Erica during that time? And that, of course, created the curiosity that made every reader who read Last Order want to know what was going to happen in Mars Chronicle. And for all the readers who, went to Mars Chronicle hoping to see or understand what has happened to Erica between her childhood and her adulthood, what made her darker, was not disappointed. Oh, were they not disappointed? Boy, did we get a handful with regards to Erica's upbringing. And this was very interesting because of the fact that you basically created an image of what Erica was like as a child based upon the actions that she did during that one single scene in the minefield. And if you recall, in that minefield, one of the things that created that image was not only her kind of bright demeanor that tried to brighten up and make Alita feel better while they were walking through the minefields, but the things she said. She was asking about Alita and where she came from and who her family was. And of course, Alita could not answer because she did not know. And so to cheer her up, Erica started talking about her family and her loving mother and her father. Almost, she was smiling and even about Coco, right? Their dog, their wonderful dog, Coco. And that was all to cheer her up. And so you started wondering what exactly happened between that family that she had and now. And the only thing that you could come up with was, my gosh, the family was killed. And she was abducted into the mercenary group. And somewhere along the way, she was violently injured. And we got to the point where she was in the minefield. Well, in the beginning, as you read through Mars Chronicle, it enforced that because, Alita came out kind of ditzy, if you want to say it that way. She was, off, her mind and thoughts were off all over the place. And it was Erica who was kind of the anchor who brought her, back down. And it was Erica that Alita relied on, or Yoko relied on, for guidance to get through life, And whether it was during the time when they were talking to the doctor or going to the orphanage, it was basically Erica who took control of the situation because Alita was just so helpless with anything that she couldn't basically even walk, if you remember, due to her cybernetic implants. And so it required Erica to be able to take care of not only herself, but Alita. And thank God Erica was such a strong-hearted individual, not only in the sense that she could take care of people because she was so well organized and self-determined, but also because she was so caring of Alita and made sure that nothing would ever happen to her, even if she herself had to take some blunt of abuse, as we found out in the nursery, or not the nursery, the orphanage, right? And what was interesting was, considering the fact that Erica protected Alita at that time, even to the point where she took abuse for her, Alita was so far out of it that she didn't even realize that Erica was doing that, and she was more worried about these little bugs that were in the bowl than she was about Erica, who was forced to eat those bugs, which of course she somehow was able to talk herself out of. So during that time, of course, Erica is basically, the same Erica that you saw in Last Order. And as we keep on going, we realize that what we thought about was probably the case, that her family got killed. and so she was abducted by the mercenaries, and that's how she ended up that way. And so everything seemed to make sense. Yeah, right, sure. Yukito Kishiro, my gosh, you're a troll. Yeah, everything seemed to make sense until we got to her house. And we found out that everything she was thinking about was all made up. There was a time when I once was telling people, I wish we would grow up like Alita, and I would answer back, you don't want to grow up like Alita because Alita has some of the worst childhood that I've seen, in the story. But compared to Erica, Alita's childhood was a cakewalk. Erica's, wow. Yeah, Erica was basically an abused child. And my gosh, she was an abused child. And everything you thought that you realized that she was in a happy family and they got killed by the mercenaries and the mercenaries injured her, no. None of that was true. All of those injuries were not done by the mercenaries. They were done by her parents. Yes, her parents. And considering the fact that you realize what sort of injury she had, she was missing the eye. She had one arm gone. And once you read what happened to her, you start wondering, oh my gosh, now we understand why Erica is that way. What kind of demented parents would go around? What kind of demented mother would go around gouging out her daughter's eyeball just because she looked at her funny? Yes, gouging out the eyeball with a fork. Or what sort of father would consistently, day by day, let their pet dog, their happy dog Coco, viciously gnaw and chew on that daughter's arm to the point that it got so mangled up that they had to amputate it? Yes, that was Erica's childhood. And finally, Erica got to the limit, the straw that broke the camel's back. And yes, the parents got killed, but not by the mercenaries. You can imagine who they got killed by. Erica. And of course that then changes everything that you understood about her. What you understood about her is true. She was that very caring child. She was that foundation of goodness and strength. But as I said, was. Now she had reached her limit. Society had broken her down. Parents had broken her down. And in fact, it will go further than that as we read further into the Mars Chronicle story. But the basic trigger happened with the parents. And of course, it got to the point where Erica could not bear it anymore, and she killed her parents. And so, now you start understanding, and you're surprised because of the fact that you did not realize this. And Erica, being the good person that she was, realized that what she did, and to somehow live with herself, she hid that family incident somewhere back in the recesses of her memory, and looking at a billboard of a happy family that was next to her house, she used that image to create a fake family, a happy dog, a caring mother, a wonderful father, and her. And it was such a twisted story that you first felt sorry for her. You felt disgusted for the parents. And it was so vicious and violent that you really felt displeased about the story. Mars Chronicle is a very tough story. And anybody who's coming into it, even from Battle Angel Alita original story or from Last Order, better understand Mars Chronicle is a gut punch of a story. And it doesn't get much better as it goes along. And you can understand how these personalities come out because of the fact that just by that image alone or situation alone, you start understanding Erica's life was definitely not fair. And it keeps on going on that way because as much as we keep on going and we move forward, we understand Erica had to experience the minefield. And then Erica had to protect Alita from the bullying in the orphanage. And then we find out what happens at the orphanage. And my gosh, it's a good thing Erica was with Alita, because if Erica wasn't with Alita, Alita might have gotten killed during that time. But it was through Erica's perseverance that they were able to get through. But Erica, experiencing all of that, and having to take care of Alita, basically put a tremendous amount of stress on her. But it started creating that persona, the persona of survival of the fittest. If I don't kill you, you're going to kill me. And so I better kill you before you get the chance to do so, is the mindset that she started getting to. And considering the fact that a lot of times she had to talk out of strange situations, such as the bullying at the orphanage, she started learning how to manipulate people. But nothing came as strong as what happened afterwards, which was when she met Baron Muster. And what was interesting is Baron Muster is, of course, one of the nastiest people in this entire series. He's up there, racing with Destinova as who is the most demented person in this entire series. And unlike Destinova, where you felt a little bit like, okay, you kind of like him because he's the Joker sort of personality. Yeah, Baron Muster, there is very little to like about Baron Muster. But he finds that Erica, because she is such a conniving individual, takes after him very well. And so he decides to bring her into his realm and teach her all about the evils that can be done to people. And yeah, if there was a role model, you hope that Baron Muster is never a role model to anybody that you know of. But unfortunately, with that personality that Erica already had, and being taught under Baron Muster, she became even more the conniving survivalist. And while she's underneath the tutelage and the care of Baron Muster, there are various ironical situations that you see. First of all, of course, we find out that in many ways, those two characters are quite similar in the sense that Baron Muster, before he was Baron Muster, was actually a reasonably decent human being. But considering the fact that he went through his own nightmares, which are yeah, some seriously twisted and demented nightmares. I did say that Battle Angel Alita was a gut punch, right? Mars Chronicle was a gut punch, yeah. Anyway, yeah, those two have very similar points in common. They were both human individuals that basically just got destroyed from the overburdening pressures that society brought down on them. And in both cases, they decided to retaliate. And in that sense, maybe Baron Muster did turn out to be the most appropriate, if not the best, tutor for Erica, considering what Erica wanted to do as a survivalist. And it may be also that through the various teachings that Baron Muster gave Erica, that it did give her the survival instinct that kept not only her alive, but also Alita. But of course, the other irony is that her core persona, the one that was seriously good, was constantly trying to get out. And one of the things that Erica kept on desiring was a love, a parental love from somebody, anybody that she could basically put as her parent, her father or her mother. So she's constantly going after people, trying to, put her trust in them as a parent, even if they themselves don't feel that they should, And what's interesting is with all the tutelage from Baron Muster and with her survival instincts, she becomes a very astute manipulator of people. And yet, whenever a father figure or a parent figure comes out, then she kind of drops all that and puts all her full trust and sacrifice to that one particular character. And considering the fact that the characters that she goes after are extremely untrustworthy, it is interesting that somebody who is that successful in manipulating people herself gets manipulated by these people who she feels are parents. But it's not because she gets outwitted. I think it's because of the fact that she wants a parent so much that she will sacrifice all her trust and throw away all of those defenses just to be with that parent. And what's interesting is, of all of those adults who potentially could have been her parent and double crosses her later on, the one parent or the one adult that is happy to become her mother is the one that she cannot trust. And it may be because of the fact that it's the very reason that she is happy to become her mother. That is such a unbelievable thing. A kindness is such an unbelievable thing that she cannot trust that person, which is interesting. All of these other people who didn't express that much kindness to her were the ones that she dropped her defenses to and tried to express that she wanted to, go with them as a family, a pseudo family. And here is some lady who comes and says that she wants to take care of her and care for her, and she not only does not trust her and defends away from her, but she ends up retaliating and killing that one person who actually expressed her care to Erica. And considering that we understand the backstory of that one adult, we understand why she would have been actually caring for Erica. So there is that irony that comes out. She's constantly looking for love, but when she finds it, she distrusts it so much to the point that she will actually rather kill that person than to accept that loving relationship. And so she's constantly going after these other unloving people because it is so much closer to what she experiences in the dark world that she feels that maybe she could trust those better. And that irony I always found to be very interesting. And what was one of the scenes with that one lady who cared for her was that final scene after she had stabbed the adult lady, and the lady still expressed her love to Erica. And what was interesting about the scene is Erica is so battling that love that she cannot trust, that what's interesting is she is pulling away from the mother who she always wanted, while on the other side, Alita, who is this one person who is so naive that she would want anybody to be a parent, is clinging on, is happy to be with this mother. And that the difference between those two expressions I found to be very well done by Yukito Kishiro. So this is a child who wants to be loved, but cannot trust to be loved. And that is a sad thing about the Erica and the situation that she got put into. And what was interesting is, despite all of these things happening, and despite all of the horrors coming in, and despite all of the fact that she got abducted by Baron Muster and had to bear some of the horrific things that were going on while she knew that Alita had been adopted into a very rich and caring family, there was a tremendous amount of resentment. And yet with that, there was still that core good person somewhere underneath. Because as much as she resented Alita, and sometimes to the point where she may have wanted to kill Alita, there was still that side that always wanted to protect Alita and always was by her side if she could. And so Erica, brings up an enigma. You're not really sure how to deal with these sorts of persona. And just like Destinova, and just like many of these other characters, you get into this conflict of, do I like the guy or do I despise the guy? And in this case, do I care for Erica or do I fear Erica? And the bottom line is you do both. And that good persona still tends to come out, because despite all the bullying that they received at the orphanage, after the orphanage got destroyed by that militia that attacked and got forgotten by the entire planet of Mars, the community of Mars, there was actually a monument put up for the people who died at the orphanage. And that monument was put up by Erica to pay respects to the people who died there. So there is this good core in Erica that still exists. But there is this ideology on top of that where even if you want to do good, she feels that the world is so full of evil and darkness that she has to literally go out and destroy everything to be able to get her goodness to come through. And in that sense, she is not that much different from somebody like Arthur Fleck, who came out as the Joker, of course, in the most recent movie. She has been beaten down so much and she has been twisted to the understanding that even if you want to do good, you'll have to do evil to bring the goodness to succeed. That is interesting, twisted thought, ideology that she's come up with. And it does keep her alive. It does keep her and Alita alive. And thank God for that, because of the fact that Alita is such a naive child as Yoko, that if Erica didn't exist, Alita would have died many times over. And so Erica is a godsend for Alita. And at the same time, Erica is somewhat a curse for Alita as well, because probably Erica contributed to how dark Yoko herself became. We don't know that yet, because we don't know what happens after, Gelda takes them in. We haven't gotten to that point yet. But we do know that it's probably not a happily ever after, because we already know that there was some incident in the final parts of adult Yoko and Erica, a conflict that resulted in Yoko killing Erica. And so whatever happened, it did not go the way they were hoping for. And probably part of it was due to Erica's personality. Now there is this thought by a lot of people, because we know what Erica is like, and we understand what Yoko and Gelda was like, that there is this thought that most likely Erika killed Gelda, and out of retaliation, Yoko killed Erika. However, if you recall, when Alita confronted her old persona of Yoko, one of the things that Yoko said was, Erika and Gelda hates me. And it took Alita's new persona to convince the old Yoko that that was not true, that they loved her. So, if that persona existed, and if Yoko became the dark persona, there is a possibility that it was Yoko who may have killed Gelda if Gelda was killed. I mean, there is no indication that Gelda was killed, but there is an inkling that something happened to Gelda, right? And I know a lot of people keep on saying it's Erika, but I don't know. There may be a small possibility that it was Yoko. And it was Erika who then confronted Yoko, and during that confrontation, Yoko killed Erika. We don't know, because of the fact that, yes, we are overwhelmed by her dark side. But we also know that there is still that light foundation that still exists in Erika. We see that throughout her childhood growing up, how much she continues to protect Alita. And even when she comes out recently as a necro soldier, we find out that, yeah, it was Erika who paid her respects to those students who, or the children who died at the orphanage. And so Erika is a very curious girl. She is one that at heart is one of those who could have been the main character protagonist in a superhero movie. But due to all the twisting and the beating and all of that, finally broke, finally reached her limit, and comes out as this, I'm not sure if you would call her a villain, but definitely an anti-hero. If she is not a Arthur Fleck, then she is definitely a Logan. Somebody who has been beaten so badly that despite the heroic feelings that they have, understand the world is not a heroic area and will basically beat somebody to death if necessary. And so Erika was a child who had great potential. And for the unfortunate situations that you see that has happened to other characters such as Carol or Kana, Erika has become a victim of circumstance. But unlike a lot of the other discussions that I've had in other videos, this story is not yet done. Because this story is still ongoing in Mars Chronicle. And for all we know, Erika will be redeemed somewhere in the future, based upon maybe things that go on. For all we know, Erika will be the shepherd girl that somehow saves the immortal Nostrum, and maybe is definitely the chosen one by the Oracle. Although the Oracle right now feels otherwise, maybe there will be a way to bring things back. And so it'll be interesting to see how things move forward in Battle Angel Alita Mars Chronicle. Not just in the sense of what will happen to Alita, but also equally strong is what will happen to Erika. And I am hoping that it will be something hopeful, because of the fact that whenever Yukito Kishiro ends a comic series, despite all the darkness that goes on, he does end it in a light, positive manner. And considering that this entire Mars Chronicle revolves around the relationship between Alita and Erika, I would have to say that whatever ending there is in Mars Chronicle will involve these two characters. Anyway, that's about it for this particular video. And thank you very much for listening and watching. And with regards to Erica, since a lot of this is still up in the air in questions. How do you feel about that character? Do you find her to be as interesting as I do? And do you find her to be a conflicting interest in the sense that you really want to like this character, but there are some disturbing parts about her that make you feel cautious, at least? And how do you feel about what will happen to Erica in the future? Do you think she will be redeemed? Do you think she will be saved? Or will she be one of the victims of circumstance in the future? Anyway, if you have any comments, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, thank you very much to every one of you for your comments, because especially in these types of videos, you guys bring out some pretty darn good comments. And so yeah, please keep them coming. And I'll continue to make more Battle Angel Alita videos in the future. I hope you join me at that time. Until then, happy comic book reading, happy anime watching, happy movie watching, and as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.